Everyone filter in here, and we'll be starting the webinar in about 2 minutes. Welcome, welcome. Maybe if you would put your name and organization in the chat so that we can see who's here. And if you're attending as an individual, particularly an individual musician, let us know that as well. It's nice to know a little bit about who's with us. Thank you, Marcy. Great. Well, we may have a few more people sneaking on, but let's get started. My name is Martha Dempson. I am the Paymaster Program Specialist for Californians for the Arts, and we're really excited to have you join us today as we continue our rollout of the nonprofit Performing Arts Paymaster. I want to introduce someone who I think needs no introduction, Edmund Velasco. Next slide. Oh, here we go. Some housekeeping that I missed. Okay, we're passing that up, but thank you, everybody. Do please put your name and organization or affiliation in the chat. Okay, so as the slide says, Edmund is the president of American Federation of Musicians Local 7. We're really excited to have him co-host with us today. Edmund, do you want to say a few words?
Yeah, just really quickly, I'm really excited to be part of this. For many years, especially since AB5, there have been a lot of problems, with the rollout of it and going in fits and starts. So I'm glad to be a part of the solution with the Californians for the Arts and California Arts Advocates. For those of you who don't know, I sit as vice president for California Arts Advocates and a board member for California for the Arts. And we've been working really hard to get this program going, both legislatively and also with the fiscal funding. So I'm glad you all are here, and we'll get going.
Next slide. Edmund, do you want to just talk a little bit further about your mission here, or are we good to continue?
Sure. Just for those of you who don't know, there is a musicians union. A lot of people don't know that. But we're our purpose is basically to ensure that musicians are able to make a living doing what we do. Remember, one of the things that we say in the Californians for the Arts is that we don't want starving artists, we want thriving artists, and that is one of our goals. That has been a purpose since we've been around for 100 years. In Santa Ana as Local 7, but that is our primary goal, is to make sure that musicians can make a living and are treated well in our communities.
Thanks, Edmund. Let's go to Tracy. Thanks so much.
Hi, everyone. My name is Tracy Hudak. I'm the Director of Field Engagement for Californians for the Arts. Next slide. And I just want to give you a little background on us. Just first, we are not the California Arts Council. We get confused a lot because there's California and arts all over the place there, but we're actually two sister organizations that work to strengthen arts, culture, and creativity, and get resources and funding for arts organizations and cultural workers, etc. Californians for the Arts is your grassroots organization. We're focused on increasing advocacy capacity, skills, training, resource, strategy, coaching, as well as changing the conversation about how the arts are valued in the state of California. And California Arts Advocate is your lobbying organization, working through direct influence with legislators, agencies, building coalitions to directly influence policy and funding. And we are seeking to both increase funding to the state arts agency, the California Arts Council, as well as to diversify it. We know that the work that you do, makes people healthier, makes communities stronger, makes the economy better, all that kind of stuff. And we believe that that funding should come from all kinds of agencies in the state. So we're working on both ends, increasing funding and diversifying the funding for what artists do. Next slide. And a lot of this work is fueled by membership support. When folks join, they keep our programs free and accessible to anyone. If you have been the beneficiary of the technical support, of getting support or help and applying for relief grants, if you've grown as an advocate, or if you'd like to grow as an advocate, we sure could use your support for either organization to keep this work growing and to grow, to build power in the state for artists and arts workers. Next slide.
Great, and I'm going to just introduce briefly John Reedy. John is the CEO of Austin Creative Alliance, who are our partners in developing and rolling out the nonprofit performing arts paymaster. John, thank you for coming today.
Oh, thank you for the introduction. I'm so excited to be here. Just a little bit about me. I'm particularly excited that this is a music-centric webinar because I've spent my entire adult life since 1993 in the music industry as a tour manager, an artist manager, a booking agent. I've been a producer, a presenter in both nonprofit and commercial side, and being around musicians and artists has been the greatest privilege of my life, including my oldest child is a working musician in Northern California. And his mom, my ex-wife, was a touring musician for 20 years. So I'm just really excited to be here, and I'm grateful for this opportunity to talk to y'all. Next slide. So Austin Creative Alliance is a nonprofit, and we're one of, I think, only two that we found nonprofit paymasters in the country, which means we exist to serve. We are not here to exploit anyone. We are here because all of us on our entire team has spent our lives in the arts and music sector. And it is something that not only are we passionate about, but we are thrilled to serve. We exist to empower artists. So our mission is, as written, advance community-driven cultural work, and particularly to support cultural workers and those who employ them. We connect resources to the cultural, arts, music, and preservation sector, and we advocate for the growth of sustainable cultural investment, obviously, particularly in Austin and in the state of Texas, but we have been growing that. And our values are super important to us. We mean them, we live them. Service of first and foremost, inclusion, diversity, equity, accessibility, integrity, and accountability. Next slide, please. Next slide. Oh, there we go. There we go. This is a little bit about our history. We're a almost 50-year-old organization that started really serving the theater sector in Austin. In 2009, we adopted a more inclusive mission of all artistic disciplines. And then this work that we're doing now has grown organically, again, through our mission of service. We listen to our members, we learn from everyone we connect to, everyone we serve, we learn more about what they need, and we strive to meet that. And as such, we began administering Actors Equity Paymasters contracts. That has grown organically as well. And now we are in 24 states. We serve hundreds of groups and artists. And we are, again, I can't express how excited I am to have this opportunity to serve you folks in California and learn from you and learn what you need and how we can meet those needs. So thank you so much. I really appreciate this opportunity. Next slide.
Thank you, John. Okay. we wanted to give a little bit of how we got here, and then we'll launch into the presentation of the details around the Paymaster itself. The reason we want to do this is because there has been some confusion around two pieces of legislation, both of which have been enacted, which started together and are now separate, just so that we all know where things stand. So what am I talking about? In 2021, a bill was introduced by Senator Rubio, SB 805, that contained two pieces. It contained an equitable payroll fund, which was a performing arts equitable payroll fund, which is a program that was designed to provide matching grants for payroll expenses to small performing arts organizations in the wake of AB5, and the nonprofit performing arts Paymaster, which was a program to provide Paymaster services to small nonprofit performing arts organizations at cost. So these two pieces we thought would be really essential for, to help restabilize the sector that was, wildly impacted first by the legislation and then by the pandemic. So over the course of the year, there were many hearings, there were a lot of conversations with labor, and at the end of the year, the bill was amended and the equitable payroll fund piece was taken out for the moment, and it went to the floor for a vote in the Assembly and the Senate on the nonprofit performing arts Paymaster piece alone. Next slide, please.
I'll jump in here. We're going to tag team on these. And so the Paymaster program was funded through Assembly Bill 164, which was a budget bill later that year, 2021. It was funded as part of an overall $50 million for COVID relief funding to the arts. It was a $500,000 set aside to set up a nonprofit performing arts payroll. And it passed through the Senate. The governor vetoed it. You might have heard that briefly because it was passed earlier, all that kind of stuff. Just highlighting that little kerfluffle there with the veto. But next slide. You're it, Martha.
Thank you. So now we had budget to create a nonprofit Paymaster, and we reintroduced the equitable payroll fund piece with a new author and a new champion, Senator Portantino, and a new bill number, SB 1116. And instead of being structured with matching grants that were supplied in advance, it has now been reconstructed to work on a reimbursement model. So you spend your money on payroll and ancillary employee expenses like workers' comp and unemployment insurance, et cetera, and then you get a tiered reimbursement back for a very substantial portion of those expenses. So the Senate and the Assembly passed the legislation later that year, and the governor signed it. However, in 2022, there was still no funding. Tracy, next slide.
So Senator Portantino this past year, budget negotiations start January all the way through the summer, did reintroduce a refunding request, a budget request letter to get the SB 116, the equitable payroll fund funded. And this was eventually it was signed. It was added in a budget trailer bill later in the summer. At the bottom of the slide, you see that there. But this all just goes to show, one, that when we advocate, we can get legislation passed, which sets the priorities, and it might be a whole other effort to get things funded, and then a whole other effort to get things implemented and out to the field. This takes time, but this was a really huge victory because last year, because of the budget crunch, we were told under no circumstances, under no new programs, no new funding. So this was a really big win for the field to get SB 116 funded last year. Next slide. So, 116 funded last year. Next slide. 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 116
So as Tracy was sort of suggesting, it does take some time not only to get bills passed and funded, but also to implement programs. So remember, we got funding in the summer of 2021 for the Paymaster. Here we are in the fall of 2023, just now ready to roll that out. The Equitable Payroll Fund is just now getting underway. Conversations are just getting underway on how it's going to be structured. So it's going to take a little time for this to come, for people who are wondering how long until you start getting that money. But at least the work is underway to set that up. So final takeaway, while these two programs started together, the Equitable Payroll Fund and the Nonprofit Performing Arts Paymaster, they're now separate programs. And today we're going to go and do a deeper dive into the Paymaster. Next slide.
Great. And just as an aside, so when these programs do roll out, when we hear from the field how they fit, how it works, we get to go back to the legislature and get things changed and improve programs. So it's an ongoing conversation. We're really excited about the launch of the Paymaster. That funding was set aside a couple of years ago. The California Arts Council was in charge of finding an organization to administer the program through an RFP, a request for proposal, and California we responded to it, and looked and interviewed payroll companies, paymasters across the country, looking for a partner that could help us. We would outreach the field and support the field and have a paymaster organization provide the services. And we were really, really excited to find the Austin Creative Alliance. Their mission is so profoundly aligned with ours in terms of understanding and wanting to support arts workers. And so we partnered on the RFP, on the proposal, and were awarded the contract to help the California Arts Council design and implement the program. Next slide.
Great. So I'm going to introduce you now to Laura Wahlberg, who's the Director of Finance at Austin Creative Alliance and speaks all things Paymaster. As the presentation continues, if you want to use the Q&A function, please, you'll find it on the bottom, on the bar down below on your screen, Q&A. You can type in your questions as we go, and we have a few people here who are going to attempt to answer as we go. And then at the end, there will be some additional time for additional questions, and we'll also raise some of the questions that you pose in the Q&A live. Okay, Laura, take it away.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to, let's just say, the main course today. I know you've all heard a lot of information so far. So my purpose today, as Martha mentioned, is to kind of give you a quick overview to help you understand exactly what a paymaster is. This is something that you may not necessarily know, and that is totally okay. It is a different way of doing business. But, well, let's just go ahead and dive right in. Next slide. While I'm talking to you folks today, I'm going to do my best to not read everything that's on here because there is a lot of information. I'm going to do my best to summarize all of this as best I can and not be too repetitive. So if I am, I beg your forgiveness now. A paymaster, what is it and why would you need one? Well, small performing arts organizations don't always have the ability or the expertise to handle the complications of hiring an employee onto payroll. Many of us, and I do include us because I too am an actor, we've been working for a very long time hiring our people as independent contractors. And as we all know, the AB5 rules are making that a bit of a challenge. What a paymaster does is we step into your organization, metaphorically speaking here. What you are purchasing is a service. We step into your administrative construct within your organization, no matter what that is, and we act as an extension of your existing structure to help you employ your people through payroll from start to finish. As the CalPay Paymaster, we facilitate the administration of your organization's payroll needs as defined by you. And I really want to point out the words as defined by you. We're not a payroll company like ADP or Gusto, wherein you reach out to us and say, I need to do my payroll. And they say, okay, this is what you got. We work as a paymaster. Our philosophy is we work to meet you where you are. So whatever those needs are, we will work with you to understand it and try to provide you as bespoke a process as conceivably possible. In serving as a paymaster, we serve as we can look at it as we serve as an intermediary between you and federal entities and state entities such as the IRS, unemployment agencies, insurance companies, unions. As I said before, we work as an extension of your organization. Around the execution of payroll are a lot of administrative activities that can be not only confusing and complicated, let's just call a spade here, but it also can be extraordinarily burdensome to your existing staff in whatever form they are, whether they be existing employees or volunteers. A paymaster is here to help with those tasks. Next slide. Hey, we meet you where you are. This is one of those things that I promise you I am going to be very repetitive about. It is the through line to everything that we do. We provide payroll services for all types of employees: permanent staff, temporary, union, non-union, full-time, part-time, salaried, you name it, we got you covered. I know that sounds very salesy in saying it, but it's the truth. And it harkens to what I was mentioning before about making sure that we are providing as bespoke a service to you as you need. The one thing I do want to point out while we're here is that if you choose to sign up for the CalPayArts program, you are not required to run all of your employees through the program. If you feel that you've already got things set up for your long-term employees, your artistic directors or your band leaders, and you've got payroll running really smooth and you got that down, but you're having a problem with your productions, we are more than happy to step in and help you just manage your productions. It is entirely whatever you want, on whatever cadence you want. We are here to help in any way that we can. Next slide. On this slide, I really want to try and identify and help you understand the difference between hiring a payroll company and engaging in a paymaster relationship, securing that service. When I'm trying to explain it to new clients, I refer to a payroll company as a tool, a hammer, a saw, a guitar, something that you physically secure that you can use to execute a particular task. Whereas a paymaster is a service that you are purchasing, wherein we, the service providers, utilize those tools. For example, you secure the services of Gusto to run your payroll right now, for example. Well, a paymaster is a service that you utilize that might use a payroll company to execute their payroll. Whereas if you're hiring a payroll company, your in-house personnel need to understand how to use a tool, have access to the tool. They're doing all of the administration around that tool, and learning it can be a real burden. Hiring a paymaster, we already come to the
There you go.
Thank you. With you hiring a payroll company, the execution in all pre-payroll and post-payroll activities 100% resides in your house. Your people have to know exactly what needs to be done and when, 100% of the way from front to back. Whereas working with a paymaster, we take on a lot of those responsibilities, as well as work hand in hand with you to make sure that everything is getting done when it needs to. We work with you to make sure that you are doing the things that you need to be doing and that we need to be doing the things that we're doing. You might say that a Venn diagram would be a really good visual to see to understand what I'm talking about. So why don't we go to the next slide? Hey, look at that, a Venn diagram. I can get a little campy on these things, so forgive me. On the left-hand side, you see we've got the circle for your organization, the employer. On the right-hand side, we've got the CalPay Paymaster, or the employer of record. And in the middle, the intersect is your employees. Excuse me. On your side, you, the employer, are 100% responsible for establishing and negotiating your contracts, choosing who you hire, managing your own workspace, conducting any on-site trainings you need to do, selecting your own employee-funded pension programs. All of those things are 100% within your wheelhouse, and you're right as the employer to determine. Working with a paymaster does not take any of that out of your circle. What we do is we take all of those things that you've just done and we administer the payroll specifications of the contracts that you've created. We work to onboard all of your employees. So there's no more collecting W-4s and I-9s and pictures of their ID information on your side. We issue all the wages, we pay all the taxes and file all the appropriate reports at all the appropriate entities. We ensure proper deductions are applied and fulfilled for every employee, no matter what those deductions are. They can sometimes get a little complicated. We take care of all of that for you. There's one thing on the paymaster side that you will notice is not necessarily represented on the employer side, and that's this item all the way down at the bottom, wherein the paymaster, in acting as the employer of record, provides the worker protection and administers all claims. Workman's comp claims, unemployment claims, all of those things are administered as the employer of record, a paymaster. Next slide, please. Now, one of the things that I do want to point out is that all of you who are attending today are going to be receiving a copy of this slide deck. That Venn diagram is a really important asset for you to have, hold, keep, and cherish. It's a real quick visual way of understanding exactly how the two entities intersect in a paymaster relationship. Right now, I want to talk a little bit more about the nuts and bolts of how the paymaster works and what to expect. So let's just dive into some of these things really quick, okay? Next slide. I'm going to hand this off to Edmund really quick, but before I do, I want to make sure to point out that in this program, individuals and fiscally sponsored organizations are 100% eligible to participate. All California-based sponsored organizations and individuals working in the small performing arts sector can secure these services. The only caveat is that only nonprofit entities are eligible for the $100 grant to cover registration fees, which we'll talk about a little bit more at the end of this when we start talking about cost closer to the end of the webinar. We wanted to make sure that we pointed out an instance wherein to kind of identify why would an individual want to hire a paymaster. Individuals who pay or distribute wages to other performers that they're working with are generally by California considered employers. Hiring a paymaster as the employer of record, instead of doing all of that funding distribution yourself, ensures that there's no liability for misclassification of workers and getting their payroll taken care of and protecting you, the individual. So really quick, I want to bring Edmund back to talk a little bit more specifically about your needs in this industry and how participation in this program is really key to your specific needs. Take it away, Edmund.
Thank you. So really quickly, for those of you who are band leaders and have steady work. This is really important because if one of your musicians were to file unemployment or workers' comp claim and they're not one of your employees, you could be held liable. I mean, responsible for that. So this paymaster system would alleviate those issues, so that you are covered. You have workers' comp through the paymaster. You have unemployment paid through the for your employees. And what's really great about this program is that you can have a whole bunch of different musicians that you could pay and have them come off and on depending on the work that you're doing. So this is a good way to protect yourself. It's a good way so that the individual musicians can participate in the social safety net programs that are available, that aren't traditionally part of an independent contractor's ability to access. And we saw this during the pandemic, that a lot of independent contractors were not eligible for unemployment right away. We had to get separate legislation approved nationally to be able to get independent contractors at least something during the time of the pandemic. Otherwise, they would have been left without any form of social safety net. And this fixes all that. This makes it so that we don't need special legislation. We can actually access this. And if you're an individual and do a lot of teaching, you can, and a lot of, work outside of that, you can do it for yourself. You can be an individual and access this program. So so even if you don't work for a lot of different, or you work for a lot of different people, never more than a few times and stuff, or even if it is a few times beyond that, you can still use the paymaster system to be able to take care of yourself, including if done properly, even contribute to the AFM pension, because that is definitely part of the process that we can build into the system. I'll leave it back to you, Laura.
Thanks so much, Edmund. I really appreciate you adding that additional bit of clarity. Now, let's really kind of jump into the nuts and bolts, as I mentioned earlier, and move on to the next slide. And while we're waiting for that to pop up, one of the things that I do want to make mention on the heels of everything that Edmund just shared with everybody is that in signing on with the CalPayART program, you would be working with a dedicated paymaster associate so that you've got a one point of contact to understand you and your needs. And today's webinar is really trying to lay out some broad stroke information for you so that you have a fundamental understanding of exactly kind of what we're talking about here. But as we're going through a lot of this, many of you are going to have very specific questions about your specific needs. Please ask those questions as Martha's recommended in the Q&A. But in the event that we are unable to address your questions today specifically, I promise you, in reaching out to our paymaster associates, all of those questions will be answered, okay? So with that said, I want to talk a little bit about information access. And what I mean by that is there's a lot of information around the payroll process, both on your side, the employer side, but also on the employee side. Well, in working with a paymaster, your employees are provided the option to access a secure online portal to manage all of their personal information 24/7. They can change their names if they get married or divorced. They can change their W-4 deductions selections whenever they want. They can change their direct deposit. They can set up as many direct deposit accounts so that their money goes where they want it to. It is truly a bespoke situation for your employees. All of their pay stubs are accessible via this portal. Their end of year tax documentation is available through this portal. It is really truly a one-stop solution for your employees. And as your employees are moving around the state working for different individuals, the more organizations that are signed on through the program, the more employers that they are working for that are utilizing this exact same payroll system. So relieving them, of course, of more onboarding activities, filling out yet another W-4. They only have to do it the one time with the paymaster that they are working with. On the flip side, we've got your access. And in working with your dedicated paymaster associate, we would set up you, the employer, with whatever access to the system is necessary. If that's a single point of contact, then it's a single point of contact. If it is multiple people that carry different responsibilities with your organization, we can work with that too. You are provided access to the portal to help us manage your people in whatever way you need. Additionally, we also provide an optional secure client online portal, a place to exchange documents. It would be a place where you could see your paid invoices. It would be a place where you could see your payroll reports. Just as an FYI, in that secure portal, your employees' personal information will never, ever be placed in there. One of the safeguards that we have set up to make sure that your people's personal information is 100% protected at every step of the way. One of the things that I do want to point out on this is with regards to temporary employees, because, you know, people that actors or musicians or dancers that come in and do a show for you, they're on your books for maybe 4 weeks. In working with a paymaster, we turn them on for you. We turn them off at the end of the engagement. Those temporary employees have the exact same kind of access as your long-term employees that you're paying throughout the year, if that is something that you're doing with us. So when it comes to long-term employees, short-term temporary employees, full-time, part-time, everyone across the board has the exact same technological access to their information and their payroll records. Next slide. Here we're going to be talking about how a paymaster associate, would be working with your organization. As I mentioned before, we step in and act as an extension of your existing administration in whatever shape or form that looks like. They work with you on an ongoing basis to make sure that they know exactly what your organization's needs are now and in the future, and making sure that they're met and employed in the precise way that you need them to be doing. That means any changes that come up now or in the future, you're working with a partner to help execute those things. A couple of little tidbits to point out. Our salaried employee payroll is run on the pay cycle that you determine. And it doesn't, those long-term pay cycles don't necessarily require your ongoing approval every single time. Hourly employees, those hours are approved by you electronically through our system. We've gone to great steps to make sure that we are employing technologies to help make your job easier. In that approval process, I want to make sure that it is very clear. You have 100% full authority and responsibility to approve or deny your employees' hours if they are an hourly employee. With that in mind, in case it wasn't inferred correctly, hourly workers enter their time electronically through an app, whether they're on a clock in or clock out clock in or clock out time schedule, if they're just filling in a timesheet, whatever your organization needs, we can facilitate. And we try and make sure that we are cutting out the having them submit a report to you or submit you an email so that you can put it into a spreadsheet. All of that longhand stuff we are trying to mitigate as much as conceivably possible. Next slide, please. When it comes to issuing your employees' wages, we do that for you. Your dedicated paymaster associate makes sure that everything is set up correctly and executed as defined by you and your employees. We manage all of the employee W-4 tax deductions, any wage garnishments that might be applicable, any union dues that might be applicable, pension plans, health plans, whatever your employee or your organization needs to be implemented around your employee's payroll, we work to do for you. And at the end of the day, when it actually comes to the execution, we recommend that all wages are always direct deposited into the account or accounts that the employee defines. Next slide, please. The paymaster, on an ongoing basis, for the payroll run for you, the organizations, we calculate all the federal, state, and local employer taxes as necessary and remit payment to all the appropriate agencies after the payrolls run. We also make sure that we file all the required tax documentation around the payroll that we run on your behalf. At the end of the year, we also issue all of your employees their W-2. And going back to something that I alluded to earlier, wherein if you're hiring a musician that is moving from organization to organization, the more organizations that person is working for that is utilizing us as the paymaster, at the end of the year, they're only receiving one single W-2 from us that encapsulates all of the payroll that they earned from any employer that they worked with throughout the year that happened to be using us as a paymaster. Next slide, please. As I mentioned earlier when we were looking at the Venn diagram, a paymaster manages all workers' protections and claims in providing the employer of record service. Your employees are covered under our workman's compensation and our unemployment rate with the state of California. What that means to you is first of all, you're paying as you go for your workman's comp fee, and you are no longer responsible for submitting into the state unemployment insurance system. We do that as the employer of record for your employees. And down the line, in the event that any of your employees file for workman's comp or file for unemployment, we administer all of those claims on your behalf. So what that would mean to you in practice is that if you have a musician that gets hurt on the job and they say, I want to file for workman's comp, you direct them to us and they work directly with us to file and claim those funds. Next slide, please. Union agreements can be a little complicated, as we all know. And if you don't, listen to me now. They can be complicated. We've been working with unions for the 20 or so years that we have been providing paymaster services. I myself am a union member, and I've worked with a lot of the major unions across the country. So I bring that level of expertise to the table in not only understanding how unions work, but having worked under many of the agreements myself. We calculate and remit member deducted dues, benefit programs, meaning pension and health, any other additional artist fees, reimbursements, musicians' cartage fees, all of the things that are related to payroll through a union agreement. We work with your organization to make sure that we understand exactly what all those needs are, and we ensure that they can be administered through the payroll process as they're intended to. There is a note at the bottom of this slide that I do want to briefly mention, and that is the activity around a paymaster providing producer of record services. It is not something that we normally do, and in fact, we recommend that our clients do maintain producer of record responsibilities on an ongoing basis. However, on around a couple of particular unions and union agreements, that union might require that if you are implementing a paymaster on a particular contract, that they want your paymaster to be the signator on a contract that you have negotiated. That's what we're talking about as an example with regards to producer of record services. Those are available only on an as-needed basis, but it's usually a needed basis that is been deemed as a requirement by a party that you've engaged in a relationship with. Next slide, please. Now, I know you've had a fire hose of information, and the one thing that we haven't talked about yet is the cost. The CALPAYART program, we have worked very hard to try and make sure that this is as simple and streamlined and as transparent as conceivably possible. We know that since AB5 launched, that life has gotten very complicated for everyone on this call. Paymaster is meant to make things a little simpler for you. Okay, so let's dive into looking at how much the service is going to cost you. Next slide, please. As I mentioned briefly earlier, there is a one-time lifetime registration fee of $100 to establish you or your organization into the Paymaster systems. If you are eligible, Californians for the Arts is granting this fee to the first 250 participants in the program. We are working very closely with Californians for the Arts to make sure that we are able to readily identify whether or not your eligibility is valid. And your Paymaster associate, when they are working with you, will be sure to let you know if you've met the criteria in order to earn that granted fee. Once you're established in our systems, I want to talk about invoices, because it's like, okay, well, I know I've got to pay X amount of dollars to pay somebody. How do I know what I'm paying? How do I know that when I give you my bucket of money, how do I know what that money is getting spent on? Well, that money is the way that we do that is through your invoices and the payroll reporting that would be available to you at your discretion. On our invoices in particular, it will be very clearly itemized exactly what you're paying in gross wages, what you're paying in employer taxes, federal, state, and or local as required. You will very clearly see how much of a percentage of your gross wages will be getting charged to you to cover your workman's comp needs. You will see the same percentage of gross wages charged for your unemployment insurance, and I'll talk about the asterisk on that line in just a moment. The next line will likely show your employer contributions to employer or employee funded health and or pension plans. Whether or not they're applicable is entirely up to you. The bottom line will always be the CalPayArt fee. And we've worked diligently to make sure that we are charging only 5% of gross wages, the lowest cost conceivably possible, to help make sure that you are not paying more and likely would be paying less were you to be working with a payroll company versus a paymaster. In addition to that 5% gross wages fee, you will also be charged what I call the stamp. When you send a letter, you need to put a stamp on to send that letter, right? In addition to the fee, there's a nominal hard cost payroll processing fee of $5 per active employee per payroll period. So if you are paying 2 people on a monthly cycle, that cost would be $10 per month. Pretty simple, right? Very straightforward. Before I move on to the next slide, I do want to make sure to mention the asterisk that is on the unemployment insurance line. When it comes to the monies that you are paying your paymaster to cover unemployment insurance, we have capped it at 6.1% of gross wages. Now, if you are an existing employer that has an SUI number assigned to them by the state of California, meaning you've already been paying into the system, the state of California has already likely issued you not only your SUI number, but they have identified at what rate you are paying into the system right now. Now, especially in California, this number can vary greatly, significantly from employer to employer. What we're trying to do is help control those costs. And excuse me, in employing a paymaster through this program, those costs will be capped at 6.1%. If you happen to be an existing employer with the state of California, and you can provide us with the letter that identifies you as an existing SU employer with your existing percentage rate, if your percentage rate is 6.1% or lower, we will meet your existing SUI rate. On the flip side, if you are an existing employer with the unemployment agency and your rate is higher than 6.1%, signing on with your paymaster through the CalPayArt program means that you will no longer be paying that high percentage rate. You will be capped out at 6.1%. Next slide, please. Now, we've talked a lot just a moment ago, really kind of trying to identify how the kinds of things that you will be paying for by employing a paymaster. If you've already been an employer running payroll, you already are very familiar with some of those things. If you have not, a lot of that was very new information and it can be overwhelming. Well, the typical question is, how do we actually facilitate that? Well, working as a paymaster, Austin Creative Alliance, in order to help facilitate and make things as easy as possible for you, our clients, we've divided paymaster services into two buckets, shall we say. The first one I want to talk about is a production, your productions. And when I'm referring to productions, I mean you are engaged in a show that could be running for just a single day or running for a finite number of weeks, and you hire your temporary people to come in, do those productions, and then leave. Traditionally, a paymaster collects those anticipated payroll costs for the entire project up front. We go through and we use our tools to calculate to let you know exactly how much all of that is going to cost you. You're invoiced once for the whole thing, you pay it, and then we pay all of your people through the course of the entire production out of that cache of funds that you've paid up front. Now, we know that something like that can be a little burdensome, especially to new organizations that are new to working with a paymaster. If you've been working with unions, you'll likely already know that that is a fairly standard practice. But in trying to help meet you where you are, if you come to us and want to start employing our services for your productions, we will work with you to set up a payment plan to try and make sure that your payroll is covered, because your payroll does need to be covered before we can execute anything. Now, the other bucket that I was referring to are what we're calling long-term staffing. If you're a theater, that would be an artistic director. If you are a band leader, it would be likely yourself as the band leader. The person that is to be receiving payroll on an ongoing basis. You are not established as a finite temporary employee that's only going to be working from X date to X date. Those long-term staffing, obviously, we're not going to charge you for an entire year's worth of payroll at the up front. That would be insane. Nobody would want to do that or could. And if you could, bully for you. How we handle long-term staffing is we work with you to understand exactly what that employee or employees' payroll needs are, and we set up a bond at the upfront. And we invoice you for 1.5 months of salary to serve as your bond. Once that has been established, we're able to start payroll. And we initiate payroll on an ongoing basis and then invoice you for the payroll that you've done on a regular cycle. Your paymaster associate will work with you to establish exactly what that cycle is going to be and to help make sure to manage that funding will always be available to cover those payroll costs. Next slide. Ah, I was like, oh, we've got a blank white page. Now it popped up on my side. Thank you so much. So I know that was a fire hose of more information, and you've learned a lot of things. I wanted to put in this slide to kind of give you a really quick visual overview to just kind of put a bow on things. The CalPayArt program does not require, remember, that all your payroll runs through us. We are here to meet you where you are and provide you the services that you define that you need, and act as your advisors to help you make the most educated decisions that you can. As a paymaster, we manage all of your payroll runs. We manage employer-employee payroll system access. We manage your onboarding activities. We handle your time log or clock in and out as needed. We manage all of your workman's comp and unemployment administration needs. We manage making sure that all of your pension and health benefits are executed appropriately through your payroll service. The last thing that I do want to make mention to you is when I was talking about the 5% paymaster fee earlier, that is truly an all-inclusive fee. If you're working with another payroll company or another paymaster, the vast majority of them are going to have their flat fee, but their flat fee isn't really very flat. The things that are listed on this slide, like employee onboarding costs, time and attendance service costs, stop payment, check reissue fees, payroll run fees, annual tax documentation preparation, producer of record services, all of these things are other services that most other paymasters are going to charge you more for. There is an additional cost to doing things that are beyond the immediate payroll service that they are providing to you. The CalPayArt paymaster through Austin Creative Alliance will never, ever charge you for any of these things. So when we're saying that the CalPayArt paymaster fee is 5%, it is truly an all-inclusive 5% fee, plus the stamp. So that's the broad strokes of the information that I want to be sure to impart to you. But before I turn it over to Martha to kind of take us into the Q&A area, where when you are asking any questions, I will do my best to answer them in as much of a way possible to make my answers as applicable to as many people on this call as possible. I just want to remind you of two things. The CalPayArt Paymaster is designed to be as low cost as possible. The CalPayArt's Paymaster is designed to meet you where you are. And the CalPayArt Paymaster is here to act as your partner and to help you out in any way that we can, whether that be in an advisory committee, capacity, or by just taking care of these tasks that can really bog you down. We want to give you the space to do what you do best, and that is be the artist that you are and do the creating that you need to do. Thanks so much. Martha, I am going to throw it back over to you.
So we have some great questions that I think will be of interest to everybody. I do want to say a couple things. We're getting towards the end of the hour. This completes our presentation portion. So if you need to duck off, we understand. I'm going to try to get to the questions that we said we would answer live and also repeat some others. Everyone should know you will get a copy of this recording and also of the slide deck and the Q&A following this webinar today. So if you need to go back and reference anything, you'll have that information. One person asked in the chat, what are the qualifying criteria for the registration grant? If you're a nonprofit organization or if you are a fiscally sponsored organization, you're eligible for the $100 grant to cover the cost of all of those startup fees. If you are
really quick, Martha, clarity, a fiscally sponsored project that's sponsored by a nonprofit organization, is that correct?
Right. Yeah, I mean,
make sure
yes,
that was clear.
Yes. And then, unfortunately, for individuals, because this was set up as a nonprofit, and individuals are not nonprofits, that's the only reason that the $100 fee is not available to private individuals, and we're sorry about that, but that's just how the state funding goes. All right, so some questions. Will the paymaster be helping with pay frequency, especially considering the laws that California currently has in place? And then they're all cited, like in California, wages with some exceptions must be paid at least twice during each calendar month on the days designated in advance as regular pay days. The employer must establish a regular pay day and is required to post a notice that shows the day and time and location, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
The quick answer to that is yes, we will work with you to make sure that you are taking care of your employees in the appropriate way that the law requires.
Yep, thank you. How will money be transferred to the paymaster for processing?
As I mentioned before, you will always be invoiced for you to pay electronically. Well, actually, I didn't mention that part, but you will always be invoiced. Under no circumstances will your paymaster, at least CalPayART's paymaster, request access to your bank account, automatically drawing funds, none of that. The whole precedence to working with the CalPayART paymaster is that you are invoiced so that you know exactly what you're paying for, you pay the money, we execute your payroll.
Here's a question that I thought would be interesting to many. How do end of year PR reports, although I assume that means payroll reports and documents, work if we use both Paymaster for production and our own payroll tool for full-time staff?
Now, when it comes to end of year documentation, there's a couple of things. Working with a paymaster, if you choose to only do, say, your productions, end of year filings and reportings and distributions to your employees will only be able to be done for those that you've paid through the paymaster. If there are other employees that you are employing that you are not paying through the paymaster, those employees' filings and distributions become your responsibility. I hope that answers the question, but it is very important question. Very good question.
I'm going to throw in a question of my own. Will you handle also contractors if requested? And if someone puts a contract, if someone has a contractor paid on a 1099 through the paymaster, is there a way to include them in the workers' comp policy coverage?
Excellent question. Yes, we are able to handle employing to any 1099 contractors. Regrettably, 1099 contractors are not eligible for workman's comp because they are not an employee.
There are lots of rules for HR in the state of California, training, COVID training, sexual harassment training, etc. Are you capable of assisting us as an extension? I
think the question is, can you provide those trainings?
Yes, these types of trainings requirements are you capable of assisting us? And I thought you might want to talk about what you can and cannot do.
Thank you, Martha. Working with a paymaster is not a 100% replacement for an entire HR department. Working with a paymaster is very specifically designed to be working with you to facilitate your payroll and paying your employees and making sure that any benefits associated with that are addressed. When it comes to working with us, though, our technology is able to help facilitate some additional HR responsibilities. For example, say you are an organization that hires us, and your organization has an employee handbook that you need to make sure gets distributed to all of your employees when they are onboarded. Our technology can help facilitate that sort of thing for you. When it comes to trainings, no, we do not provide HR trainings. If there is anything that we can do to assist you, we will do our best to meet you to do so. And my recommendation would be that you should speak directly to your payroll excuse me, your paymaster associate to ask those specific questions. If it's something like you don't know if it's something that you need to be doing or if it's something that you can do through us, we will help you understand exactly what that is on a case-by-case basis. But broad stroke wise, we can help facilitate with some very macro level HR responsibilities, but when it comes to the ongoing things like training and whatnot, that is not something that we can assist with.
There is a question about, is there a website where we can register for services? And you will see that I put a link in the chat that you can use. This is a place you can go either to sign up or just even to initiate an inquiry about your own organization, your own needs and circumstances, so you can sort of finish the process collaboratively in determining what, if any, services will work for you.
Thanks, Martha. When you go to that link, please fill out the intake form. That does not automatically mean that you are signing up for the service. Our goal is to make sure that you understand exactly what this service is. We work with you, and because education is a big tenet of our mission, education, support, and mentoring. We will talk with you as long as you need to make sure that you understand exactly what we're doing here so that you can make an educated decision about whether or not a paymaster relationship is something that is going to work for you. I'll be honest, a paymaster relationship is not necessarily the be-all, end-all answer for absolutely everybody. I want to make sure that everybody understands that. But when you come to us, we will have whatever conversation you need to have. And with that being said, I also do want to make mention that through this program, because we have a lot of people at the door asking for services or wanting to know more, I want to make sure that expectations are very clear. We are connecting with we will connect with absolutely everyone, and we are making sure to do so in the order in which people are coming to us. So if you've already managed to find your way to our website and you filled out that intake form, chances are that we've already contacted you. And if we haven't, you're already in the queue. Okay, so I just wanted to make sure that everybody knew that coming forward. There are many other touch points wherein that will be shared with you, but since we're talking here today, I want to make sure that I pointed that out.
Here's an interesting question. If you're the employer of record, do you supply legally obligated benefits? So sick pay, unemployment claims, insurance. So you've talked about workers' comp and administering those claims. You've talked about unemployment insurance, but do you also track the accrued sick pay that is owed to employees as they go?
Our paymaster associates will work with you to make sure that we understand exactly all of the tenets of the employer-employee payroll relationship that needs to be set. Yes.
Does the paymaster put together financial reports and documents for the IRS at the end of our organization's fiscal year? So just distinguish between all of the filings that you do take care of and then an organization's 990, if you would.
Okay. In working as the employer of record, when we execute your payroll, we are doing that with your employees are fundamentally our employees. So we manage paying all of the taxes. We make all of the appropriate filings on all of that payroll to all of the appropriate entities. What you as what I've typically will refer to as the employer client, what you will be granted access to is you will have your invoice, which shows exactly what you paid for and where it went to, but you will also be provided any payroll reports that will share with you exactly what payroll was one. I'm suddenly turning into Elmer Fudd. What payroll was run when, and it will show all deductions and whatnot. With that said, I want to make sure that it is very clear and understood that in working with Boston Creative Alliance as a paymaster and the CalPayArt program, employee pay stubs will never be shared with you directly. In serving as the employer of record, we hold your employees' personal information sacrosanct, and as a result, your employees' pay stubs remain 100% within the confines of the relationship between us and your employee. When it comes to the 990, yes, you do need to identify how many people you have employed within that year. The reports and the invoices and all of the information that you shared with us is always available to you throughout the year. We don't do, we currently do not do any summary annual report for you to be able to use for your 990. It is expected that in working with a paymaster, you are also keeping your own financial records, including this information on an ongoing basis, so that when it comes time for you to prepare your own 990, if that is in case actually the form that you need to file, you already have that information provided to you on an ongoing basis throughout the calendar year.
So just to be a stupid person here, because I don't always listen very well, if you are the employer of record, or if you are the employer, and you
Employer of record.
no, but like, so I'm speaking as an employer and you're my employer of record.
Mm-hmm.
For the purposes of my 990, I still record the number of employees who have been taken care of by the employer of record.
Yes.
Does the paymaster also help with nonprofit audits?
We are here to help facilitate whatever you might need around the payroll process. So if a nonprofit is going through an audit, as I mentioned earlier, you are already being provided all of the requisite information around the payroll that is being executed on your behalf on an ongoing basis. You should always already have that. But if for any reason there is any other additional information that might be asked of your auditors, of course, we will work with you to provide whatever you might need. But having gone through many audits myself, as I mentioned, you should already have all of that information on an ongoing basis.
Just hitting a couple quick, since we're about coming close to 15 minutes or 15 minutes over. Really quickly, will you work directly with our corporate accountants?
In what capacity, if I might ask?
And because that's all that's in the question, what I'm going to say is we'll follow up with that one afterwards.
Sounds great.
And another question that I think we can hit very quickly is, can you join for workers' comp services and not payroll?
Nope, I'm sorry, but workman's comp and unemployment is directly 100% tied to payroll.
I think most of the rest of these we've either covered or we can cover in a follow-up, because some of them are going to be a little detailed.
Sounds great. And remember, and thank you, Terry, for that, for taking a look at scanning through those. Remember, people, we are here to talk to you to your heart's content. And just because you have a conversation with us does not mean that you are automatically committed to securing the services of this program. This program is here to help you in whatever way we can. And if that means it's just a conversation, then it's just a conversation, and that's at no cost to you. You do not incur any costs through this program until you've actually signed on and we work with you to start establishing your paymaster services. Okay?
Terry, do you see anything more that we should raise? You're seeing some questions that I'm not.
No, I think, if you've got a couple more minutes, Laura, we probably could hit, a couple more. Can you clarify the 5% fee? Is it 5% of what costs?
5% of gross wages.
Uh,
And that's also very detailedly cleared out, stated on the slide deck when you receive it, as a reminder.
And the slide deck has the breakdown of the costs. There's another question here about that.
Yep.
And there are questions about, for those of us dependent on ticket sales to pay performers after the performance, can you go over the production payroll prepayment? There was another one also that asked on this same topic. So while you're answering it, when you pay in advance, do you pay for the entire production or just for each payroll? So if you could clarify that part, both of those things within production payrolls.
There was a lot in there, so if I'm missing
Sorry.
something, please let me know. Um, when it comes to production specific payroll, yes, we do require that you provide the funding to cover that payroll beforehand. If you are in a situation where you are hiring musicians to play in your band for one night and you do not know how much you're going to be receiving, which I'm trying to come up with a concept where that would be the case. Yes, we can assist you with post-production catch-up activities if needed. With regards to production, I do reiterate that we do need to have those payrolls covered financially by you before we can execute them. Regrettably, Austin Creative Alliance does not have a spare bucket of cash to be covering everyone's payroll before we execute them. But at the same token, as I mentioned before when we were talking about this at the earlier slide, if paying all of that money up front is a burden that you do not feel you can meet, our paymaster associates will work with you to establish a pay-off cycle to ensure that we have the funds to pay your people and that things are being covered. Yes.
Okay.
Did I miss anything in there, Terry?
No, I think that covered both of the questions. That was great.
Okay.
One more, with people continuing to wrap their brain around the cost. For example, if we pay $400,000 per year in employee wages, then this program would cost $20,000 per year. Do I understand that correctly? As the 5% of the 400,000.
Fundamentally, the short answer is technically yes. But when we're looking at the difference between that organization running their own payroll versus running their payroll through a paymaster, I want to make sure that it is understood that there are a lot of financial factors that are at play in an organization hiring a payroll company that are accounted for differently in engaging that work with a paymaster. Let's say, you simply say, organization A is running $400,000 in payroll services. Well, in payroll for that year. Chances are they had to hire someone to manage and execute payroll and do all of the things associated with it, including managing all of the workman's comp and unemployment. The cost of running that person, hiring that person, and having them be in-house to do that is something that needs to be taken into consideration.
In the interest of time, I'm going to interrupt you just for a second and streamline it and say, in all likelihood, no, there will be additional costs in addition to the $20,000 because there's also going to be workers' comp and insurance, correct? And
yes, that is the other thing that I was going to talk about is yes.
So the answer is no, it wouldn't be simply the $20,000 per year. So let's just give them the short no for now, just in the interest of time.
Understandable. That is a very complex question that
yes.
Your paymaster associate will definitely make sure that you understand when you call us.
Yeah, but I know that concept has been a little bit confusing for a lot of people because of all the percentages. And so I just wanted to make sure we gave the simple, clear, no, you need to dig into it a little easier because it's not as simple as 400,000 in wages means $20,000 and then you have no other expenses related to payroll.
Thank you, Terry. I appreciate
Absolutely.
your stepping in there.
The other question, and I just wanted to clarify this, from the registration fee. We definitely clarified that only nonprofits can get the registration fee. Does it have to be a performing arts nonprofit, or can a visual arts or a music education nonprofit also qualify for the registration fee? I know they can register with the paymaster, but can they get the $100 off?
It's It's a little murky in the legislative language, which is very slender. I know that Julie Baker thinks that they can receive that funding. So I'm going to go out on a limb and say, yes, we think so, and happy to look at that with you.
There's another question. Does this work with all tools, for example, QuickBooks, or do we need to transfer your system as a nonprofit?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
I can. It says, and does this work with all tools, for example, QuickBooks, or do we need to transfer to your system as a nonprofit?
Working with a paymaster is not the same as employing an accounting software. So there is no need to transfer your books out of QuickBooks into any other system. We do not migrate any information into your system, just the same as we do not ask you for your banking information to automatically be withdrawing funds. The paymaster systems work very independently and separate from whatever systems you've employed in your organization.
So you will still need to enter it into your QuickBooks. You will get reports just like you would get from a payroll service, and then you would enter them.
Exactly.
I think unless there's any new ones that have come in, and
I do have one that somebody texted me,
Sure.
just because it's from a band leader. Said maybe you could get an answer for me. I'm worried I won't account for all expenses when quoting a price to a client. If I want to pay a band member $200 for a job, how do I know how much the paymaster will charge for taxes, insurance, paymaster fees?
When it comes to working with the clients, we work very diligently to make sure that we try and get as much upfront information as possible so that when we're quoting you for an invoice, we are quoting you as much real cost as conceivably possible, given the information that you provided for us. That being said, if something happens during the course of your payroll, like someone needs to be reimbursed something, or there's an additional fee that you weren't aware of, we will work with you to make sure that those do get paid to your employees. But if those additional things come up that have to go through, that get paid out to your employees, we will invoice you separately for those incidentals, for lack of a better word, that came up unexpectedly.
Thank you.
Sure thing. Yes, this is not a one and done situation. We are here to meet all of those weird little anomalies. They come up all the time.
Yeah, I know that, but I just wanted to make sure it got put out there.
Sure thing. Well, with that, regrettably, I do need to hop off unless there's a 2-second question I could pop in here with.
No, I think that's a great note to end on. We will encourage everybody to sign up. I can tell you, because in addition to working with Californians for the Arts, I also run a small theater, and I can tell you that the specialists are great. I have put in an inquiry myself, and they are incredibly responsive. They will answer your questions through email, even if you don't have time to get on the phone. And particularly with the pricing, as I've said to you a couple, I would really encourage you to sign up for that direct, and that way you can say to the specialist, this is what I spent last year on everything, and they can help you get the exact numbers instead of, because it is a little bit confusing with all the different percentages and things. So I would go on, and there is no hard sell. It's not like, you know, in some situations where you put in an inquiry and then somebody is calling you and emailing you every 5 minutes for the next 6 weeks. But I would very much encourage you to sign up and get that one-on-one, and then you can make your specific decision, because we all know that we have to protect every single dollar.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, everybody.
Carrie.
Thank you, Laura. Thank you, Edmund and Martha, and John. And thank you all for coming. And we look forward to hearing more from you as you go through the process. Thank you
Sounds great.
again.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.